Good morning, truth. God has not yet released me from the topic of prayer. So, in obedience to his instructions, we're going to start off today talking about prayer once again. Paul instructs us in 1 Thessalonians 5:17 to pray without ceasing. But how is one supposed to pray without ceasing and live a normal, everyday life with responsibilities, tasks, and obligations? To pray without ceasing does not mean we are to be in a head bowed, eyes closed posture all day long. Paul is simply referring to us adopting an attitude of God consciousness and God surrender that we carry with us all the time. Every waking moment is to be lived in awareness that God is with us and that he is actively involved and engaged in our thoughts and our actions. When our thoughts begin to slip into worry and fear, discouragement, and anger, we are to consciously and quickly turn every thought into prayer and every prayer into thanksgiving. As we go through the day, prayer should be our first response to every fear situation, every anxious thought. A lack of prayer will cause us to depend on ourselves instead of depending on God's grace. The act of unceasing prayer is in essence continual dependence and communion with God. For Christians, prayer should be like breathing. You don't have to think to breathe because the atmosphere exerts pressure on your lungs and essentially forces you to breathe. That is why it's more difficult to hold your breath than it is to breathe. Well, same thing. When we are born into the family of God, we enter into a spiritual atmosphere where God's presence and grace exerts pressure or influence on our lives. Prayer should be the normal response to that pressure. As believers, we have all entered the divine atmosphere to breathe the air of prayer. Now, unfortunately, many believers hold their breath for long periods of time, thinking brief moments with God are sufficient to allow them to survive. But such restricting of their spiritual intake is often the cause of many of our pitfalls. The fact is that every believer should always be spiritually in the presence of God, constantly breathing in and exerting his truth to be fully functional. Too many believers become satisfied with physical blessings and have little desire for spiritual ones. When programs and methods and money produce impressive results, there is an inclination to confuse human success with divine blessings. When that happens, the passionate longing for God tends to decrease or cease to exist completely. Continual, persistent spiritual connection and incessant prayer is an essential part of Christian living and flows out of humility and dependence on God. Remember, when you start your day with truth, blessings throughout the remainder of the day is inevitable.
Our theme music is composed by Darren J. Ross and can be purchased at iTunes.